Hello, my name is Joe Roy, and I'm the Director of Institutional Research and Analytics at the American Society for Engineering Education. And today I'm going to be talking about our new platform for the College Profiles Survey for 2019. So there are a couple of changes we've made this year with the new platform. Um, and I'll display the new platform in a moment, but I just want to talk briefly about some of those changes. So the first change that we've made is to incorporate and harmonize the reporting of engineering and engineering technology disciplines. So that if you're a College of Engineering and you have engineering technology programs, you don't have to coerce them into engineering discipline data, and vice versa. So if you're a College of Engineering Technology and you have engineering programs, you don't have to coerce them into um, engineering technology categories. We also wanted to allow this year for engineering and engineering technology departments and programs to exist outside of a college structure. I'll talk a little bit briefly about that in a moment. We allow for an expanded definition of gender to be reported to us, and I'll explain that as we go forward today. We also wanted to harmonize the race and ethnicity categories across faculty and students. So essentially what this means is we added a non-resident alien category to the faculty demographic data for headcounts that we collect. We also wanted to allow for institutions to retain a copy of their official numbers that they submit to us more easily. So in order to do that, the survey itself has been split into two pieces. The first, you'll enter the data into our new survey platform through survey.asee.org. There's another video on this same website that walks through the subscription, the registration and payment instructions for the survey this year. But once you've registered for the survey this year, the first piece of filling the survey out is gathering the directory information for your institution. And then the second piece is we have a structured Excel worksheet that you'll be entering in the data and uploading that data when you're done submitting. So this video today is going to focus on the first portion of the College Profile Survey, and there'll be another another video walking through the second piece of the survey, which is the expanded spreadsheet. So I just want to point out that in order to get to the instrument that we're talking about, you have to have an account on our survey.asee.org website. You'll click on this four-year survey link, and that'll take you to the survey platform for your institution. And finally, after this video is completed, as I said before, we'll have another video coming up soon about the survey spreadsheet itself and uploading it, and then also an introduction to our research expenditure for doctoral institutions, covering the rules and some of the questions we've been asked recently about these items. So before I go into the survey instrument itself, I just want to point out that we have on the ira.asee.org website instructions for the survey, as highlighting new things and then also covering the data collection timeframes that we're looking for what's being asked. The other thing I want to point out is that we've added definitions based on feedback from participants as well as our leadership. We've clarified some of the definitions that we sort of were silent on in prior years. These definitions specifically for all of these definitions are taken from the federal data collections, with the idea being that your reporting systems should have these in place with a minimal reporting burden. So we're not creating unique definitions for the survey, but just pulling the widely used definitions for things like full-time staff, the difference between full-time and part-time students at the undergraduate, graduate level, and then different other items that we're collecting. So coming back to the new survey instrument itself, when you first log in, when you first come, select the 4-year survey link, you'll be brought to a screen that says, let me see. In fact, I can actually do that here. So if I, let me log out here. So you're coming into survey.asee.org new. You've already created an account and you've completed the registration and payment process. So you're logging in again. You'll go up to subscriptions and you'll, once you've logged in, you should see this 4-year survey link. We'll click on that and you'll see this initial screen here that takes you to the restore button. So every time you log into the system and you enter in data, it retains the data whether you save it or not. So as soon as you've entered the data in, the data is retained within the data entry system. And then you can hit restore and come back into the system new. So I'm just going to advance to, there we go. So the way that this works is you can advance and go back to different screens with the previous and next button. There's also a navigator selection here where you can go to, you can jump ahead to different pieces of the survey. And so the way that this works is it's not after, when we first designed this, we had it after every screen, but the initial user testers, the external user testers for the survey didn't like that setup, so we've spaced these out. So if you don't see this while progressing through the survey at first, you should be able, you should see it after 3 or 4 selections of next or 3 or 4 selections of previous. So when you first log into the survey for the first time, you should be brought to this pre-survey screen. So what this question is, and it's different from what we've had in prior years, is it's asking where engineering and engineering technology programs are located, and then what the display name for each of those pieces should be. So for example, so this is the display name that would appear in publications that we produce. One thing I do want to point out is that if you have engineering and engineering technology programs, you need to select at least one of these options for each one in order to see the entry items for both types of programs. So for example, for engineering technology, if you have those programs that you want to report in this survey, you need to select at least one of these options, the one that closest, at least one that most closely aligns to how your programs and departments are housed at your institution. So once we've entered that in, we can hit next. You should see the data preloaded if you participated in prior years for many of the variables that are being asked for. So right here, for example, we have the engineering department names, and you can go through and proceed through the survey once you've entered in the appropriate department names. If you have a department that's no longer in existence, but either it's closed or it's been merged into a new department, you can select this not reporting option here, and if there's a new department, you can enter that in on a new line. So we can click next, going through this system, and again, because I selected one of the engineering technology options during the pre-survey, we see those department names here as well. What the other thing that I want to go through and talk about here is that, so the instructions cover pretty much all of what we're asking for here as you're navigating through this survey. There's a couple of things I did want to touch on, which is first, our personnel information. So if we go to that section in the survey, you can enter in the number of personnel that you'd like to report for the data collection that we're doing. However, one thing I want to point out is that we've made a change this year, and that's unless one of these staff personnel positions are selected, we're not collecting that data. So we only want the data of folks who fall within one of these personnel codes. The reason for doing this is that when we were migrating the data from the previous database, we noticed that some institutions had entered in upwards of 800 personnel. And there's a couple of issues with that. The first issue is that migrating that data is a bit problematic given the structure of the database we have. But the other issue with that is that we don't report anywhere personnel reported to us if they're not in one of these positions. So what ended up happening is we think that people were entering in personnel and they're just sitting in the database. It's not printed anywhere. It's not published anywhere. We don't use that information in any way. So rather than we're eliminating that option going forward, and we only want you to enter in data for personnel that fall within one of these categories. There's still some flexibility. So for example, if one thing we've noticed is that some institutions will enter in several head of engineering colleges and then report like executive administrative deans or associate deans of research or associate deans of student success or something like that under that category. That's okay. But if they're not housed within one of these personnel codes, we're not collecting the data. We have imported The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is that the structure of the survey is a little bit different this year in that, let me advance, in that several of the sections have what are called pre-questions, or where we're asking you for how many like degrees are you offering, how many programs are there, how many departments are there. So if we look at the staff information, for example, we're asking you, before you see the personnel information to fill out, we're asking that you enter in the number of staff you're wanting to report. The reason for this is that this generates the number of fields that you'll see here, so that right, so since we picked 20, we'll only see 20 items to enter. The other thing that I want to point out is that the navigation menu here marks completed sections with the word complete. So if I go to this student admissions information page, we'll see that we've checked the box that I certify that this page is complete. So that's how we indicate you can indicate completeness for this menu here. So, and again, selecting that doesn't submit the data, but it does mark it as complete, generate a response here. The other thing that I wanted to go to is the, let's go to the MS Excel reporting. So you see here the different Excel formats. Sorry, the different Excel options for reporting. So there's two different options for reporting. There's an extended gender option and a binary gender option. So we've included, if you look on the instructions, we've included details as to what each of those means. So basically, for the binary gender Excel template that we have, we're assuming that you are reporting data to ASEE as it would be reported to iPads. That is, gender for individuals who are unknown would be reported in a category either male or female selected by the institution. What this means practically is that if you're choosing the binary option, we still want you to include counts for all individuals, even if their gender is unknown. But you would be categorizing those with unknown gender or non-binary gender into one of the binary categories at your discretion, again, as required for iPads. The other option is an expanded set of categories where we have male, female, non-binary gender, and then another gender option or unknown. And we'll see this in the Excel spreadsheet in a moment. For this, I'll walk through in another video how to handle this Excel spreadsheet. But I just want to point out here that all of the tabular data will be reported in this format. So finally, when you finished this survey, entering in the requested information, you can advance through to here. So When you click submit here, this indicates to us you're done filling out the data. So you cannot edit the data once you've selected submit. If you accidentally select submit, just email us and we can undo it. It may take a business day or two for us to undo that, but we can, and your data will be saved and editable for there. But please try not to click on the submit until you're finished entering in this data. The other thing I want to point out is that sometimes, as you've probably seen in this video, um, the Illume system might get stuck in weird loops. So basically what this means is that when you're clicking next, sometimes it may not take you through to the next screen, but you can always navigate back and forth to these navigation menus in the survey. The other thing that I want to point out that we've been able to add recently is you can download a copy of the blank survey. And we currently are working on setting up so this link is at the bottom of every page. So this is the blank copy of the survey instrument itself, just to give you an idea of what's being asked for. We're working on setting up the filled in survey once you've submitted data or entered data into the system to be able to give you a similar PDF of that, what's stored in the system currently. So thank you very much, and the next video that will be posted on the same site will cover submission of the tabular data. Thank you.